Commander Zarathul stood at the center of the training arena, her forearms crossed in amusement as she watched the latest batch of human recruits struggle through the obstacle course. Her chitinous exoskeleton gleamed under the harsh lights of the Galactic Defense Station, and her compound eyes tracked every fumbling movement with predatory precision. Pathetic, she clicked to her aide, Lieutenant Veximer. These humans move like wounded cleft beasts. How did such a primitive species ever make it to the stars? The Zephyrian warrior had earned her reputation through 3 decades of undefeated combat. Standing nearly 8 feet tall with reflexes that could track plasma bolts mid-flight, she was considered the finest close combat specialist in the known galaxy. Her people had evolved on a high-gravity world where even the plants tried to kill you. Humans seemed like soft, slow children by comparison. Among the struggling recruits, one figure caught her attention. Marcus Chun moved differently than the others. Where his companions bulldozed through obstacles with brute force, he flowed like water, finding gaps and weaknesses that shouldn't have existed. His smaller frame slipped through spaces the other humans couldn't even see. Interesting, Zarathul mused, her mandibles clicking thoughtfully. When the exercise ended, Marcus approached her station. Unlike the others, he wasn't breathing heavily, and his expression held none of their frustration. "Commander," he said with a respectful bow, "I was wondering if you'd be willing to spar. I'd like to test myself against the best." Zarathul's laugh was like breaking glass. Around the training facility, conversation stopped as heads turned toward the sound. Even her own troops knew that laugh it meant someone had just made a terrible mistake. "You want to spar with me, little human?" She leaned down, bringing her face level with his. "I have never been defeated in single combat, not once in 30 years. I've broken Krillian bone crushers and outfought Altarian mind warriors." Marcus didn't flinch. Everyone has a first time. The laughter that followed was even more chilling than the first. "Oh, you are amusing. Tell you what, human, if you can ever beat me in fair combat, I'll marry you." She gestured to her watching troops. "You all heard that. The day a soft little human defeats me is the day I'll take him as my mate." The alien soldiers erupted in clicking, chittering laughter. It was the most ridiculous thing they'd ever heard. Humans were useful for technical work and creative thinking, but in physical combat, against the Zephyrian warrior, it was like watching a hatchling challenge a storm. Marcus, however, simply nodded. "I accept those terms." Something in his tone made Zarathul's laughter fade. For just a moment, she wondered if she misunderstood something about human culture. But the moment passed, and she shook her head. Dismissively, "Very well. Tomorrow, 0800 hours. Don't disappoint me by not showing up." The next morning, word had spread throughout the station. The observation deck above the main arena was packed with off-duty personnel from a dozen different species, all eager to watch the human get thoroughly humiliated. Zarathul entered the arena in full combat regalia, her ceremonial war paint making her appear even more terrifying. Her forearms moved in complex patterns as she limbered up, each motion precise and deadly. Marcus entered wearing simple training clothes, carrying nothing but a small towel and a water bottle. "Last chance to surrender with dignity, human," Zarathul called out. "I appreciate the offer," Marcus replied, setting his water bottle carefully at the arena's edge. "But I prefer to finish what I start." The combat began as everyone expected. Zarathul's first strike came like lightning, all 4 arms moving in coordination that should have ended the fight in seconds. Her claws whistled through the air where Marcus had been standing, but he wasn't there anymore. The human moved like smoke, seeming to phase between her attacks. Every strike that should have connected passed through empty space. It was as if he knew where she would attack before she did. What the audience couldn't see, what even Zarathul didn't immediately understand, was that Marcus had spent his entire life studying not just combat, but the combat styles of every species in the known galaxy. He'd watched thousands of hours of Zephyrian duels, analyzed their movement patterns, identified the subtle tells that preceded each attack formation. Humans, it turned out, had one advantage that no other species possessed. They were persistence. Hunters, they could analyze, adapt, and outlast anything. For 20 minutes, Zarathil pressed her attack. Her strikes became wilder, more desperate as frustration mounted. The human wasn't even fighting back, he was just surviving, learning, adapting. Then something changed. Marcus stopped retreating. When Zarathul launched her signature four-armed whirlwind attack, the same move that had ended her last 50, Fights Marcus stepped forward instead of back. His hands moved in a complex pattern she'd never seen before, redirecting each of her strikes in sequence, using her own momentum against her. The arena fell silent as Zarathul found herself off balance, overextended. Marcus's final move was almost gentle, a simple push that sent her tumbling to the arena floor. When the dust settled, the greatest warrior in the known galaxy was flat, on her back, staring up at a human who wasn't even breathing hard. "Good match," Marcus said, offering his hand to help her up. Zarathul stared at the offered hand, then at his face, and finally at the hundreds of witnesses watching from above. Slowly, the implications of what had just happened began to sink in. You actually She stammered. "I believe the traditional human phrase is, 'Will you marry me?'" Marcus said with a gentle smile. "Though I should warn you, my mother is going to have some very strong opinions about the wedding arrangements." As the crowd erupted in chaos above, Zarathul realized that somewhere in her overconfidence, she'd forgotten the most important rule of dealing with humans. They never ever gave up, and they always took things more seriously than anyone expected. 3 months later, the wedding was the most attended event in galactic history. The bride wore traditional Zephyrian war paint. The groom wore a tuxedo and the biggest smile anyone had ever seen.